Hi YouTubers, I'm back with another video for my Religion and Ethics series, and this time I'm going to talk about war and peace and my views on the military and war, because I'm seeing it from both sides of the spectrum. And first up, I should say that tell you guys that I used to be in the military. I'm not anymore, and I'm glad, because I'm now kind of a hippie, but not really. I'm not a tree hugger in a strict sense. I do believe that wars are sometimes necessary, but they're necessary evil, and most of the time they're just evil. And the reason for that is I believe in the value of human life. And it's one thing when adults are engaging in kerfuffles of some sort, for whatever various reasons they might have. But oftentimes the victims of war are not grown men or women fighting. A lot of times the victims are innocent, non-combatant women and children, and elderly men, and who knows, the animals even, So a lot of times innocent people that had nothing to do with the conflict in any way, and maybe even don't give a shit about what's going on, end up getting hurt. And on top of that, and I know that in having this stance and having this opinion about war, there are probably going to be haters, and I can take it. Granted, I have had some lively discussions with family members who don't feel the way that I do, which resulted in tears, usually mine. So, I shouldn't dish it out if I'm not willing to take it. But I realize that having this view is not very popular with most people here in this country, because most people are American as apple pie, flag-waving, military-loving individuals, and a lot of people own guns. I don't have a problem with that. It's a Second Amendment right. And but a good number of the people that are gun owners do tend to take that stance of being pro-military, pro-war. And even the people that are pro-war, there are some that feel the way that I do. I'm not totally anti-war, but I'm not pro-war. So, and I'm not totally anti-war because I do realize that there are situations down through history where, conflict couldn't have been avoided, where diplomacy wasn't an option, where people were fighting for their rights, and they're basically fighting for their lives. So there are instances where war wasn't necessary, but it was a necessary evil. But like I say, war is evil because innocent people get hurt, and oftentimes very unnecessarily so. If you think back to World War II, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, there were a lot of people that got hurt, military and non, but the targets were mostly military targets. They weren't so much, civilian buildings and civilian areas of population. There were military people that got hurt and non-military people that got hurt, but the majority of what was being bombed were military ships and military airfields and so forth. So yes, it was unfortunate. A large number of our fleet was taken out during the bombing of Pearl Harbor. But at the end of the war, the U.S. decided to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which were two, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but two Japanese towns. Not towns, cities, great big cities. And thousands and thousands of people died. They weren't attacking a military target. They weren't just shooting from airplanes, dropping bombs from airplanes on military targets. These were atomic bombs. And with atomic bombs, not only did they destroy these cities, killed a great many, not most of the people in the cities, men, women, and children of various ages, but there were the after effects of radiation. So horrible, horrible thing, and unethical in my opinion. So, as the song goes, war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. There are diplomatic ways of resolving conflicts. Sometimes war is unavoidable, but most of the time, it's not even provoked. Most of the time, people look for excuses to go to war. And I think that that's what happened with Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam. World War II, there were reasons for the U.S. to get involved, but it seemed like that they were overly eager to get involved and find an excuse to go to war and become involved in what was going on in Europe. But that aside, I think that war is a, what is that saying? Oh crap. War is a racket, as the saying goes. Can't remember who said that. And I think war should be avoided. As far as the conflicts right now in Iraq and Afghanistan, we now know that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And I think it's safe to assume that either we just had faulty intel, or my suspicion is that there was no intel and everything was invented for the purpose of going in and invading in Iraq. And granted, Saddam Hussein was not a good leader, not a good president. He was a pretty evil man, from what I've heard. However, that does not justify going in and blowing up buildings and killing civilians. And the whole thing with the Iraq War is that the news media tried to make it seem like this great and wonderful thing, and it wasn't. It's awful. It's awful when innocent people get hurt, and especially when it's based on things that aren't true. And the bombing of Baghdad, that whole campaign, I believe, was called Shock and Awe. Horrible. Horrible. And something that I see happening now in the U.S., and especially since the advent of video games, since the invention of video games, I see a lot of indoctrination of kids into this mindset. War movies, Hollywood war movies, that I believe a lot of the times are inaccurate and seem to glorify war. In addition, video games especially. Video games seem to glorify war and glorify the military and make it seem something about what it isn't. And even in showing the violence and showing the bloodshed and the gore, they try and make it seem cool to kids, and that is just awful and evil, in my opinion, to to try and get kids as young as 8, 10, 12 years old to think that it's okay to just go and shoot people. When we hear about school shootings, I'm not surprised to find that in a lot of those cases, these kids had and played very violent video games. When my little brother, my baby brother, was little, he used to play with toy soldiers. And I didn't think much about it at the time. You know, everybody has them, you know. It was the thing back in the day. All the little kids had little toy soldiers and little cowboy guns and with their holsters and everything. So I didn't really think much about it. But in retrospect, now, all of my older brothers have gone in the military. I went in the military. And now my little baby brother is talking about going in the military. And I look back and I think about when my brothers were younger and they had the little toy soldiers, the little plastic soldiers, and they would have battles with their toy soldiers and line them up and knock some of them over and set them up in various positions around their rooms. And I thought it was all in good fun, and back in the day I didn't really think about it. But when I think about it now, I realize that that was some sort of like indoctrination to like, what's the word? To like get little kids to thinking, to desensitize them to thinking that war is okay. And that it's good and it's patriotic and it's all that. And don't get me wrong, if the US were attacked, if we were invaded, I would have every reason to go out, get a gun, learn how to use it, and defend my family and my country. That is right. If people were coming, you know, people from other countries were coming in and invading and taking over and hurting and killing friends and family and neighbors, I would very much be okay with picking up a gun and fighting and defending life and land. But my foot's asleep. But to go into foreign countries and find an excuse to pick a fight and invade with little or no provocation, that to me is wrong. And it's not patriotic. Any kind of patriotic fighting, in my opinion, would be in the form of defense. To go on the offensive and go fight in some other country when there's no need for it, when there's diplomatic solutions, or you know, it's just completely unnecessary. We're just interfering in their own affairs. And it's one thing if that country were our allies and they were being attacked, to go in and come to their defense. But it's another thing entirely to go into some poor third world country and decide, oh, well, your president or your leaders are not doing right by you, so we're going to help you stage a revolution, or we're going to come in and attack you and oust the so-called supposed terrorists that we just know are hiding within your country. That is ridiculous to me. So I'm going to do another video on this because this one is getting really long. But I'll stop it right here.